Hello, friends. This is Scott, and this is how Mr. Lincoln and myself spend most mornings. Is we take a nice little stroll around town, and Lincoln just bugs the crap out of me in the mornings. He loves this. He wants to get out. He wants to sniff everything, check everything around. And Mr. Lincoln's not the greatest at taking walks. Again, he's good about the leash. He just doesn't seem to want to walk very much. He likes to stop and he likes to sniff and check things out. And so our little nice couple mile strolls around town take a little while because he's always stopping and sniffing and checking things out. But when he's doing that, it gives me time to kind of look around and look at the beautiful town I live in down here and the beautiful countryside. And, I really do feel at home down here. It's just beautiful. And again, these crisp mornings are even if they're cold, this is below freezing, but it's sunny, no wind, and just beautiful. It's just glorious to come out and take a nice walk in the morning and get some fresh air. And yeah, this is what country life is all about. And this is what I have been seeking. It was this type of a lifestyle. And again, Mr. Lincoln, he doesn't get very far in his walks. We do a lot of stopping and standing, and yeah, he's got to mark everything. So yeah, that's Mr. Lincoln. Well, on our walks, we generally see several little resident herds of deer, and yeah, this one I think has a group of 5. They let you get fairly close. They're not too afraid. There were a few bucks this summer I saw, even on my own property, but I haven't seen any bucks after hunting season, so I guess they probably didn't fare very well. But this is right across the street. And again, this is my little resident deer herd. I can see 3 right here. There's more. There's probably 5, I think. But yeah, they're in my yard. They're in the neighbor's yard and across the street, and they just kind of live here. So yeah, they're always around. And this is a summer shot. And I just wanted to kind of get into the topic of today's videos. You see these deer, they eat the trees too, even when there's lots of grass around. So imagine what these deer are going to do when they can't, get to reach the grass. They're going to come after my little orchard on the side of my property, as well as the trees in the pasture. And so here's a look at kind of to see if these deer have disturbed my fencing and how well my fencing did to protect my little urban orchard to start with. And here is a very recent, this was a few days ago, and you see the culprit. That's proof that what those tracks are. We have a lot of deer moving through here, as you see, and they tend to take the paths right through the trees. And yeah, you see, but those rings, again, they're nothing fancy. They're just welded wire. They're about, I think it's about 4-foot round rings, 2 foot from each post to the tree trunk. And yeah, these deer have been cruising right through. And as we look at all the tracks, this is a regular route for them. And as we scan back around, there's not any damage to the trees. So my orchard has been protected by these cages. So that's a win. So I did a good job with those. And then this is a flashback to when we first planted our couple shade trees in the pasture. And again, the maple tree we planted did not survive after the second year, just because of gophers, I believe. But this was an elm tree. And I had no livestock or no plans to have livestock in my pasture. But then I look and I start seeing these little grazed down areas from the neighbors. And yeah, there's holes in the fence. And there's the culprit right there. And if he sees temptation on this side of the fence, he's going to break through. And that's one thing about cows. If they see anything they like, they're going to bust through fencing. So I had to put some protective fencing around these trees. And I just started out with taller, but just narrow rings, and made it through the first winter. And again, I had no cattle or horses on the pasture, and the deer were always in here, but they didn't even climb the fence to nibble the top. So that was, we had a live tree, and that's a win-win. So the fencing, even that little narrow fencing, was good enough for the deer. But here's the problem with fencing. The following year, take a look at what we got. When you want to mow your yard, you want to make your yard look nice, but then you have these fenced-in rings, and all you're going to get is weeds. Now, I did put down cardboard and lots of bark, but again, the bindweed doesn't get impacted by bark, and the other weeds are just going to grow up anyway over time as the bark and the cardboard breaks down. And when I first put these rings on, I overdid it on the wire, tightening them up, so it was kind of a real pain to open these up. So I've kind of learned a lesson that the deer are not aggressive with these wire fences. So now when I open them up and clean them out and close them again, I just use zip ties and then just pop the zip ties, open them up, makes it a lot easier. But I'm tired of doing this, Seems like the first time I weeded these trees, it was 1 wheelbarrow full of weeds for every tree. And again, I keep putting more and more bark and things like that. And it's gotten down to where it's only 1 wheelbarrow for all the trees. So we've made a little bit of improvement, or at least by 7 times improvement. But these looks pretty sharp when they're all cleaned out. But again, I still have to figure out how to deal with the weeds, because that's again, I'm happy that my trees are protected from the wildlife, but they're not. The weeds are still going to be an issue, and it's like 3 or 4 times a year I have to open these rings up and clean them out. So I'm hoping over time, by using weed and feed in the yard, there'll be less weeds infiltrating. But the last tree I planted this spring was a nectarine, and I did dig out the ring a little bit wider. So hopefully that through the weed and feed in the grass, and the having a little bit more space from the grass to the fence, will eliminate some of this bindweed. Now I can do some topical spraying weed killer, and it does work. I don't like doing it, but that may be what I have to do to try to finish this stuff off. And if I can get it all killed down and get most of the weeds out of the grass, then maybe I'll solve my problem, but we'll see. But yeah, it doesn't take long for these weeds to grow back, and it looks pretty unsightly. So I want my place to look nice, and again, it's part of a day project to have to open up these rings and do this. So still working on a solution other than weed killer, but I think the problem is getting better. Maybe it's just time and staying on it. But the pasture is a whole different animal, though. As you see here, the grass grows taller than the trees. And this is before I started grazing any animals, right before. And then the horse was going to be the first one that was going to come on the property. So I went ahead, and because the horses have obviously long necks, I put more wire up high. And I did put another ring around the original ring. I actually took that original ring off and just made it a good, I think it's like a 6-foot round. And but doesn't solve the weed problem. Again, it appears that the cows are going to be staying out, I think, and the horses, but we don't know yet. Yeah, but I have to open up the rings, and these are a lot harder to weed, so I just cut them down. I didn't even try to pull all the weeds out of there. But yeah, I've got to figure out what to do with this, and so several times I'd open it up, clean it out, threw cardboard down, and more kind of broken down bark mulch. But again, it didn't solve the problem, and I have to wire these up tight because, again, bigger animals are tough on fence. So it does look nicer when it's all cleaned up. But as you see, the bindweed still grows up the fence, and it's not. I do not have a solution up to this point. I didn't think I did anyway. So, yeah, my big thing is I just want to keep those cows from having any temptation, and so you have to open up those cages, because if you leave tall grass in there and all the other grass is ate down, they're gonna break into your fence and probably get to your tree. So again, it's just constant. The animals started grazing outside, and I still got to get rid of the grass inside, so those cows don't want to push through that fence as much. But I'm not out here all the time, and it's tough. Like I say, the horse eats fairly tall when the weeds are tall, and again, the horse lead all the way to the ground. But with that long neck, the horse can reach up and possibly get to that tree. So I'm really glad that I did make the cages taller, and there's no damage up high, so the horse is not trying to push through into the tree. But this was the first 2 cows that I had on the pasture 2 years ago, and then I've had 2 others, and the horse back. So I've had a total of, if you want to count the same horse twice, 2 horses and 4 cows in the last couple of years. And I've really been impressed with how these cows have grazed the pasture down very nicely. And all their fertility I've been using in various ways, and I'm happy. I don't have to mow this other than just a clean-up mow, and there's lots of nature's goodness. But here's a look at how well these animals graze this pasture down. They did a great job, but I got to keep the grass out of the rings, because when the grass is this low and the only tall grass is inside the fence, they're going to go for it, and they're going to bust into those rings. So, yeah, there's a look at some of the pasture grass, and it is improving. And again, that's the way I want it to look at the end of the season. Again, I like it nice and tall to start the grazing season, and then 3 months or so that the animals are on it, they work their magic. But this was just today. I went down, and I wanted to look at some damage that I thought was going on with these fencings. I thought that these cows had busted in, and they pushed in the bottom. And again, you see I have some spaces between the rebar, or not the rebar, the fence posts. And but what I don't have now is, I'm thinking I'm going to fix these fences, but then I look and I say, what am I missing here? There aren't any weeds. I did not go in here and do a great weeding job at the end of the year before the snow fell. But look what we don't have. Again, there was temptation, so the cows were able to push in the fence, but because I have the more fencing on the inside, they weren't able to break the fence, and they ate all the weeds. So this is maybe a solution to the whole pasture problem, and fencing is kind of a cone. Tall on top, let them push in the fence at the bottom, and this is something that could be a solution. Every major channel, Justin Rhodes included, is always worried about how they're going to get their their pasture trees to survive and not have a big old ugly mess, well, maybe that cone thing is the way to go with 2 rows of fence posts. So anyway, just want to remind you, though, if there's temptation on the side of the fence, I showed you in my last video, these cows are all about it. So you got to figure out how to get those weeds out of there so they're not going to destroy your trees. So I think I'm going to do a little research and see if I can come up with a new invention. But anyway, so there might be a solution. So think about that. The cone shape, tall on top, wide top. Cows don't reach up very high. Horses do. And then with the second ring inside, they'll push the fence up against that. Can't get to the actual base of the tree because of the cone shape, and they'll eat all the grass and maybe keep you from having to do all that weeding. So anyway, here's my drive out back to Salt Lake, and we had a little bit of snow going on, and I just wanted to kind of show you the pretty drive out of here. And this is the back road into the homestead before I hit onto the main little canyon highway. But anyway, well, thanks for watching this video. And if you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button, like, share, and comment. As we're getting in this little lull of winter, I got to come up with some more gardening topics or something related to that. I don't have a lot of inside chores I want to do or inside projects at the moment, but we'll see what I come up with. Thanks for watching.